Welcome to the Reddit Chronicles. Today we are reading from Malicious Compliance. Our first post is by Throwaway. A dirty house stresses you out. Let me fix that. My mom is like a terrible hoarder, and for the past 2 years I've lived with her. I've tried to clean the house constantly, but there's just no place to put everything. And seeing as I have OCD diagnosed, it's been really emotionally stressful for me. Like, to the point it's contributed to me trying to harm my life before, back when I was 14, and she just doesn't care. This woman, when I first told her I was harming myself over the mess, legitimately said, "Well, if you care about the mess so much, make sure you don't get blood on the floor when you harm yourself." But then played the pity card for money when I was hospitalized. I have my own insurance that covered all of my medical bills. She didn't need any money. And then yesterday, we got into a huge argument about the house being filthy, and she brought up some of my past trauma for no reason, and then said that she was just as much a victim, and the house being dirty affected her just as much, if not more than me, and she just kept going while I bawled from the awful stuff she was saying. Then she told me to get out because she needed a nap, not to hear me bee and whine at her. So, I let her take that nap, and while she did, I did her a favor and unvictimized her by throwing away the huge piles of hoarded clothes, wrappers, and bottles, broken glass, boxes she'd saved for 3+ years in case she needed to do a return, broken remotes, etc. After a lovely 5 hours straight of filling up trash bags, I finally stopped to eat and go to bed. But I got the living room almost completely clean. This morning has been amazing. Having a clean room and watching her be all pissy without being able to admit she's mad. I threw her stuff away because then she'd have to admit she's been falsely telling everyone she knows that I hoard, despite everyone knowing it's BS because it's stuff I'd never buy or use, and that she's a clean freak. Even her boyfriend and ex think it's hilarious and keep cracking jokes about how she's gonna be the next thing in a trash bag. Genuinely though, this is the best I've felt in a while. I love stuff being clean. Our next post is by Taronk. You want me to tell you every rumor I hear as a high school teacher. Okay, this was fun for me, and I was shocked how long it was allowed to go on for. I'm a high school teacher of an elective subject that lots of kids take and enjoy. I build great relationships and generally have the same kids for multiple years, so I get all of the tea spilled to me. There was an incident during an after-school event. I was in one space doing my thing, and some students who had been in another part of the building came in and said, "Mr. Taronk, there are people having passionately touching in this other room." I follow them to the scene of the crime, and there is nobody there. I do all of the appropriate follow-up to see if anything actually went down, but no body, no crime. And no one actually saw anything. They just said they saw the couple come out of the room, and it smelled like passionately touching when they went in after. Also, no cameras in the part of the building in question, a thing I had pointed out as a problem multiple times in the past. Fast forward like 4 months and the principal calls me down to their office. They proceed to chew me out for not reporting the incident, it having finally made its way through the rumor mill up to the top. I tell them all of the steps I took to follow up at the time and that it didn't seem like there was anything to report. The room didn't smell like passionate touching to me, so it didn't occur to me to tell anyone about it. To be fair, it was early in my career, so maybe I was wrong. I ask them, in what I assumed would be received rhetorically, "So where is the line on what unverified, evidence-free rumors I should be reporting?" And they respond, "All of them. Cue malicious compliance." I proceed to call and email them after. Every single conversation I have with a kid that could be even remotely construed as problematic, we are talking a minimum of 3 times a day, usually more for 3 weeks straight, including weekends. The most satisfying was on a Friday afternoon at about 4:45. The principal picks up the phone, and before I can say a word, they say, "Okay, Mr. Taronk, you've made your point. Update." Some clarifying points, particularly for those in the profession who think my initial reaction was problematic. 1. I, the teacher it was reported to, didn't actually see the couple in question, nor could anyone involved point them out to me in the building. 2. I did seek clarification as to why the principal didn't think I handled it appropriately, and when seeking clarification on what unverified reports come to me should go up the chain, and she said, all. This is where the malicious compliance came into play, not because I objected to the notion, but because my legitimate question for guidance was a non-answer. 3. It was a Friday after school. I didn't think anything of it due to the complete absence of anything actually occurring, and so I forgot about it come Monday. There was literally no one on campus to report it to, and as a young teacher, it simply didn't occur to me that I should call the admin on a Friday evening to report an event that had zero evidence of being true. Our next post is by actual Ms. Same punishment for being 5 minutes late as being 3 hours late? Sure, no problem. So I'm working for a low-level corporation, about 450 employees. I've been there for 5 years and have risen to the top of my department's productivity levels. I mention this as it does pertain to the story. Management had a policy that latecomers would be penalized, but that lateness could be excused under some circumstances. I was good at my job, and I actually loved doing it, so I was more or less a dream employee. I always showed up to work 20 to 30 minutes early because I liked to sit in the lunchroom and prepare for my day. Management knew I was almost always early, so if I was late from time to time, and such instances were rare, they'd let it slide, as there was always a valid reason. Now for some other employees this latitude wasn't applied. Chronically late employees would get written up and not have their constant lateness excused. They'd complain, of course, but management was firm. They ran an actual meritocracy, where more productive employees would experience preferential treatment. Then the business gets sold and we get new management. An international corporation only interested in buying us up, stripping us down and selling off the company. Of course, they denied this constantly, but the fact that over the next 2 years they stripped us down and sold off the company proved they were lying. New management comes in and has to make a bunch of idiotic changes. One of those changes is that no reasons for being late are accepted, regardless of validity. Anyone 5+ minutes late for work would be written up. So at the team meeting where this is explained, I asked, so if someone is 5 minutes late and someone else is 3 hours late, the punishment is the same? And they said yes. From that day on, I stopped coming in early. I'd still head to work at my usual time, but I sat in a local coffee shop instead of my work's lunchroom. This meant that my work missed out because in the past I would often help out by answering questions, even start work early if needed. Because I loved my job, and the old management were wonderful bosses, no more of that under new management. In fact, if something happened, like unexpectedly bad traffic, and I was going to end up being a few minutes late, I'd just say, F it. If being 3 hours late is the same punishment as 5 minutes late, I'd just decide to come in later. I'd call work to tell them I was delayed, then go out and have a leisurely meal in a restaurant, or run some personal errands, go shopping, even see a movie, etc. Depending on my mood and how crappy the new management had been lately, what would have been, say, a 7-minute lateness on my part would end up seeing me roll in 3 hours late. Sure, it cost me a few bucks, but I made almost as much in bonuses than I did in hourly salary, so missing out on a few hours here and there didn't bother me too much. I'd come in 3 or 4 hours late and my new bosses would be fuming. Nothing they could do though but write me up for the basic tardy, same as they would have if I was 5 minutes late. Our next post is by Sufficient Forever. Give me a parking ticket for a spot I paid for. I dare you. About 10 or so years ago, I went to a concert an hour away from me in Indianapolis. Decided to make a day of it going to several museums and spots around the city. Each time paying for parking in a garage for 2 or so hours, then going to meander around the area. Finally, I go park close to the venue, and paid for parking until the time it was free. Total, I probably paid $40 to $50 for parking throughout the day. Enjoyed the concert, but come back to a parking ticket on my car. I think this is odd, but I am tired and chalk it up to a mistake. But I decide to take photos of my parking spot. Both spots on either side were taken, and all the signage, and head home for the evening, figuring I would sort it in the morning. The next morning, I review the ticket, the photo of my spot, and my parking receipt. The ticket did not line up to the spot my car was located in, and my receipt shows that I had valid parking at the time of the ticket. So I submit an appeal thinking this will be easy. It's obvious that a mistake was made. The appeal was denied. The ticket was for the spot that was not paid for, ergo it stood. I called the office, and the lady said they did not make a mistake, as my receipt showed that I paid for spot X1, and the ticket was for spot X. I asked about the photo proof that my car was in spot X1. She said, well, you could have moved the car. Note that the parking receipt included my license plate number and everything. Think Park Mobile-like system. I noted that there were cars in spots on either side of me, and that the entire street was full because of the concert. And honestly, I don't think they bothered to look at the photo. Even had that not been the case, I had proof that that license plate had a paid parking spot. No matter what, no dice. I am feeling petty over this $25 parking ticket at this point. So, I called Visa and asked if I could retract the amount I paid for the time that I had parked, since it didn't count. I submitted all the evidence and documentation to Visa. Visa, in what was the greatest thing they have ever done in my opinion, they agreed that if my parking receipt and transaction number wasn't proof I had paid for parking, then clearly I had paid for a service I did not receive. And they extended my initial request of canceling the one transaction to include all the parking spots I had paid for through the system that day, valued at more than the parking ticket. Then they filed a formal complaint on my behalf with a letter explaining why they were refunding me. I would not have been nearly as satisfying if I had not spent the entire day playing tourist in the city and racking up a large parking bill, all with the same vendor. Thank you for listening to the Reddit Chronicles. Follow for more content.